We come to you asking for your blessings and help as we are gathered together this evening. Show us how to conduct our work with a spirit of joy and enthusiasm. Amen.
The old local voice still there.
It could be Jewish or Catholic or anybody.
Is he picking on me?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move for the approval of this evening's amended agenda with resolution 194 before 189.
Aye.
Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on anything on the agenda this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm John Holcomer. I'm the Outreach Manager for the Wisconsin Counties Association. And with me this evening is Jason Stringer, who I know made a presentation to your board prior. We are here this evening just if there's any questions that you might have on the property assessed clean energy. So we just wanted to let you know that we're here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak to the board on anything on the agenda this evening? Is there anybody else in the public that would like to speak on anything on the agenda this evening? I'll let you join us. Okay, this is the meeting will close. Communications and petitions.
We have a couple of notices of claim. The first one comes from Trevor and Beth Krieger for damage to his driveway after asphalt work was done by the County Highway Department, referred to Personnel and Finance. A notice of claim from John and Kirby Treelevin for damage to their driveway after asphalt work was done by the Highway Department, also referred to Personnel and Finance. Petition for zoning amendment from Jeff Egalski in the town of Wolf River, requesting a zoning change from A2 to A2 without wetland, referred to Planning and Zoning. Petition for zoning amendment from Allison Thompson in the town of Nakaimai, requesting a zoning change from A2 to R1, referred to the Planning and Zoning Committee. Then you have a number of resolutions from various counties, Forest, La Crosse, Outagamie, and St. Croix, and those are all regarding different types of legislation, so they're referred to the Legislative Committee. And that's all.
Okay. Reports from committees, commissions, and boards. Supervisor Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to say that there will not be a legislative committee meeting this month. So many will be gone to convention and that, so there will not be a legislative committee meeting this month.
Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday, the Park Department took their tour and had meetings throughout. We started out at the Expo Center on the grounds. We toured the BMX, Winnebago Land BMX, and I was totally amazed that they already start these kids out at the age of 3. And now they found some sort of a solution that goes on the cement that makes it nicer for the wheels on their BMXs to go. And in fact, one of their employees is out in California right now showing it. And the nice thing about it, if it works out like they're hoping, that's a big plus for Winnebago County. So I want to make sure that was taken care of. When we did our tours, we toured the Expo grounds, see how that was going. We toured the community park grounds. From there, we took a drive to Winneconne, had lunch, and Trish Naut from the ECW RPC, she came in there and gave us a highlight of what's going on phase 2 of the park economic impact study. From there, we went over to the Porgan boat landing so we could see what's going on at the landing and what's got to be done. From there, we went over to the Walcall Dam. and then back to the Coglin Center. At that particular time, we recessed until 7 p.m. That night. And then we went to the City of Neenah Town Hall to discuss the possibility of a public dog park. There were somewhere between 35 and 46 people there. I've heard two different stories. 8 of us were county board supervisors, though. After a good discussion about the dog park, we had 3 people who were against the dog park. And 2 of them I could really understand because one lives right next to the Gladfelters, the other one lives across the street. So, but I wanted to make this county board aware of it, because if it does go through, I want you to know. Outside of that, we did take a vote of all the people that were there. And the vote ended up being 32 for and 2 against having a dog park there. So like I say, I want to make sure that everyone is on track on what's happening and what's going on. So outside of that, there was one disagreement. A gentleman said that we did not do any publication. And of course, you know it's on our Winnebago County website. We were on some radio station here in Oshkosh, and we were in the Post Crescent about this meeting last night. So the guy must have not paid close attention to what was going on. So outside of that, it was a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Smith.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Report on the Eastern Wisconsin Counties Railroad Consortium inspection tour, which was held Friday, August 25th. We did the inspection on the track between, this is Wisconsin and Southern Railroad track between Horicon and Oshkosh. Just some points of interest along the way. The track between Ripon and Oshkosh is over 100 years old, and it is bit by bit being replaced. Now, one of the things that people need to understand when they have hit a crossing with those trains, the maximum speed they're allowed is 25 miles per hour. So if you think you got a slow train coming through, that's the reason. They can't go any faster than 25. The newer sections of track where they can go faster start at Ripon. Along the way, we were given some information as far as what's being replaced. Those older tracks, like I said, over 100 years old, are being replaced little by little. Each one of the railroad ties between the tracks cost approximately $50 a piece. So to give you an idea of the expense, ever sit there and take a look at a railroad crossing, look how many railroad ties there are holding those tracks in place. But overall, it was a good event. The inspection train is especially nice since they have it set up like a big bay window across the entire back end of the car, and you're sitting in seats that are like stadium seats, elevated. So you get a good view of everything on the track and on either side. But the progress has been moving right along. Everybody that's involved in it is happy with the amount of time it's been taking them to get things done. It's being done slowly to make sure it's done right. Again, that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Knitsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a member of the Parks Committee, I was on the tour along with our other Park Board members. I always enjoyed that tour. It's very uplifting, I guess I can say. And then in regard to the nighttime meeting with the dog owners and potential dog park, I think the meeting went very well. Well, the majority, far majority, was in favor of it, of having a dog park, and the site itself, they were pretty happy with that. We might have to tweak the roadway and create a walkway along the highway, but at this point, I think it's a good choice, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple weeks ago, Supervisors Locke, Sinkstock, and I, as part of the ADRC committee, attended a conference, the joint conference in Middleton, Wisconsin, ADRCs and assisted living centers. And one thing we found out, maybe you all know this, but the state of Wisconsin is getting older. Right now, it's really affecting the northern part of the state very heavily. And in the next 20 to 25 years, it's going to affect almost the whole state, where the majority of population will be, 60, I think, 65 or older, more than the majority. And the challenges are finding ways to keep people in their homes. I have been on another committee, the older collaborative adult group. How do we keep people in their homes? To keep them in places of the countryside and that. That's a challenge. Transportation is a challenge. So I did find some creative ideas about how to get people to go to the nutrition centers, the meal sites. And it was an interesting conference, especially when you have the governor of the state of Wisconsin and Larry Butler. So it was a very interesting and productive conference. And I also want to highlight a couple things since I'm a member of the ADRC. The ADRC puts out this very extensive resource book that we all have in our desks. Please take it home. Please use it. If you know people who need it, please. We have, I think, over 100,000 copies, very widely used for people who need to know which services are available in this county. And then the last thing, on October 9th, the ADRC will be having an aging conference in the city of at the conference center in Oshkosh. So I just want to give you an update of what the ADRC committee is doing.
Okay, thank you. Approval of the proceedings from August 15th County Board meeting. I have one correction before you go there. On page 128, Supervisor Farley voted no. I think it. Pardon? Ordinance 183, 8/2017. So that correction has to be made. With that correction, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. County Executives Report.
You've got several interesting items on the agenda tonight. One of the resolutions is with regard to the PACE program. I would encourage you to support that program. It's simply one more tool for development or redevelopment. It's a small tool, but I think there's no point in omitting any tools that we could have to help us either redevelop or develop a site. You've got the initial approval on the bond issue. Now, this will come back to you at a later time after the bonds have been bid and there's actually interest rates for them. But right now, interest rates remain very attractive, and the bond issue is just under $10 million, which would allow it to be bank qualified, which usually allows us to have a better rate. And it's only slightly larger than the amount of bonds maturing over the course of the year. So the debt will take a small upward tick, but it'll still be very close to a 21-year low. And the final item is that the due date is passed now for proposals on the race track. We received only one proposal, but it did not.
We don't have nothing about the racetrack on the agenda.
No, this is on the county executive comments.
I think you're going. Oh, okay.
You guys wanted to do minutes.
All right.
Then you put it on the agenda.
But you need to know that the one response we had did not meet the minimum requirements. We were asking for $28,000 in revenue, but that included paying $9,000 of the track's utilities. So it was only a net revenue to the county of $19,000. And the only response wanted to negotiate that and indicated that they felt it was too large of an increase from prior years. And I couldn't help but notice the same proposal inquired about their income for 3 prior years. I think it was 14, 15, and 16. They reported over $1 million of revenue in total over those 3 years. During that period, they paid us roughly $16,000 for the use of the track, which left us with a net negative cash flow of $60,000 because we were servicing debt at that time. So simply because they didn't meet the minimum requirement, this is not a qualified bid for the track. And I'll be looking to the Parks Committee and to any board members as a whole that have an opinion that want to give us some sense of direction on this. But it clearly was not an acceptable proposal. And I'm told by corporate counsel that we shouldn't discuss this at this time, but I certainly am available for any phone calls or comments that you have. And that's what I have for you tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We have run the second ad in the paper for replacement of District 15 for supervisor in District 15. So we're in the process of trying to replace that person. So that's being worked on at the present time. The presentation on renovations and modifications to the west wing will be put on at a later date. So we'll go on to zoning reports. Report number 1, Nicholas and Robin Schertz, Town of Algoma. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for report number 1.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. A mandatory ordinance number 090117. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you. I move for mandatory ordinance number 9117.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Report number 2, Winnebago County Planning and Zoning Committee, Winnebago County. Supervisor Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the referral for the report number 2. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Supervisor Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A point of information, for this amendatory ordinance 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6 was not considered or deliberated by the County Planning and Zoning Committee. I'm told that a Planning and Zoning Administrator is with us this evening. Could we have an explanation of why they were not considered by the committee?
Mr. Chairman, can we finish this motion first?
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
No, I'd like to.
Opposed? Carried.
Abstain.
Pardon?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure that Supervisor Egan was asking.
For report number 2, I thought should be finished before we go on to 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's what I was asking.
Okay, I thought you were asking to go ahead.
Right. I just wanted to say a few words on that, if I could, please, Mr. Chairman, even though it's passed already.
Okay.
That a committee of the Winnebago County, it wasn't just brought to our, the Planning and Zoning Committee. There was a large committee for several months that went ahead and studied that many from the town each had one of their own if they wanted to come to this meeting. Supervisor Kirsch, Supervisor Snyder, Supervisor Fari, I know they were all on that committee, plus many of the other ones were. Brian is in the back. He can probably tell you more on it. I was not on that committee. We had one of our other representatives from our town, but it was well thought out. They had public hearings. They sent out postcards. This wasn't something that was just done fly by night, because this is going to affect some of the people in Winnebago County greatly, some of the farm people. So, but they wanted the people just to go ahead and they wanted Winnebago County just to go ahead and put farmland in, whether we wanted it or not. And as a committee, we didn't feel as though that was right, that we just said, whether you wanted to put it in or not, that it should be done that way. If they'd like, the other ones can speak on it, but also Brian might want to speak more on it.
Okay. Jerry, do you have anything more to talk about it?
Or Jerry, I didn't see him back there.
Yes, good evening. Yeah, you know, fairly lengthy process, couple of years, work with the towns. You know, it's a state mandated program that all counties are required to do. We finally have completed the update to the Farmland Preservation Plan and it is before you tonight. I'd certainly be happy to answer any questions.
Is it,
Supervisor Eisen, you have some
yeah,
questions?
Mr. Chairman, is it appropriate to address that question? I'm referring, are we now entertaining amendatory ordinance number 3?
We will be. Not yet.
Okay. Thank you.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mandatory ordinance number 090217, land use plan amendment to include a farmland preservation plan as mandated by Wisconsin state statute. Supervisor Egan.
Move for the approval of mandatory ordinance 090217.
Then moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying, Supervisor Eisen?
No, Mr. Chairman, I would like to address mandatory ordinance 3.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. A mandatory ordinance number 3, Rick Stickling, Town of Clayton, rezoning from A2 to R2 for tax parcel number 0060670-01. Supervisor Egan.
That would go
Or,
to.
I'm sorry. Supervisor Youngquist.
Thank you. I move for the mandatory ordinance number 3.
Been moved and seconded.
Point of information?
Mr. Eisen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, mandatory ordinance number 3, as well as number 4, 5, and 6, was not considered by the county's Planning and Zoning Committee. And they didn't review it, they didn't vote on it, and my inquiry is why? I did send an email to the department. I got or to the chairman of the committee. I got a reply from Peggy Heiser from the department, but she did not address the question that I entertained.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These 3 or 4 items, rather, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in particular, the town of Clayton has its own subdivision and its own zoning ordinance. They're not part of the county zoning. The only time the zoning department and the county level would review these if they were part of the county zoning. They have their own, but they need to have approval by the full county board to go forward with their zoning. If that makes sense.
Okay,
I do have a question there, Mr. Chairman.
go ahead.
Well, if the county doesn't have to entertain it, why is it on the floor?
I believe that statute that has to be approved by the county board.
Well, I don't know. Could the planning zoning administrator address the question and resolve my question? Because I attempted prior to the meeting to obtain that information, and the information I had received back, which I did not have a timely opportunity to review previously, was not satisfactory.
Jerry, would you like to answer him?
Yes, these are town zoning changes, towns with their own ordinance. They are required by state law to come before the county board for approval. The Planning and Zoning Committee does address them only from the standpoint of consistency with the town and county plans, and they basically forward those on to county board after confirming that. So there is a requirement that Planning and Zoning Committee does address those.
Mr. Chairman, there's nothing in the report that would indicate any consideration by the Planning and Zoning Committee. And every time we get one of these ordinances, we have a recitation of the Planning Zoning Committee has reviewed it and has found that it's satisfactory.
Just a minute, we got another $35 fine. Okay, finish.
So, you know, if it is in good order, if it's been confirmed by the department chairman, and if the Corporation Council has no objection to the absence of any reference to the committee, although we have been told just this evening that it's a committee's responsibility to review it, then I just thank you for the information.
Supervisor Fari.
It's all been addressed, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. A mandatory ordinance number 4, Jeremy Dassler, Town of Clayton, rezoning from R1 to R2 for tax parcel number 006-0638 and 006-0638-01. Supervisor Youngquist.
Thank you. I move for the amendatory ordinance number 4.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. A mandatory ordinance number 5, Mark Lipke, Town of Clayton, rezoning from R1 to R2 for tax parcel numbers 006-1790-03 and parcel number 006-1790-04. Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the approval of a mandatory ordinance number 5.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Seeing no questions, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. A mandatory ordinance number 006, Barbara Bombinski, Town of Clayton, rezoning from R1 to R2 for tax parcel numbers 006-0637-01 and parcel 006-0638. Supervisor Youngquist.
I move for the approval of amendatory ordinance number 6.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolutions and ordinances. Disallow claim, Resolution 189, 920, oh wait, I'm sorry, 194. We're putting 194 ahead of 189 as Mr. Roble suggested. Resolution 194, authorize borrowing an amount of not to exceed $9,860,000 and authorize the issuance of a general obligation promissory notes therefore. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for Resolution 194, 9/2017.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. What? How many people are here? 35. Resolution number 189, 9/2017, disallow claim of Jason Tesh. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for resolution number 189, 9/2017.
And moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 190, 9/2017, authorize Winnebago County to become a member of the Property Assessed Clean Energy PACE Commission. Supervisor Pillar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for adoption of resolution number 190-92017. I'd like to add that I think it's a good economic development opportunity.
You have to speak into the mic.
I'd like to add that I think it's a good economic development opportunity for the county, and that the resolution is actually contingent on county treasurer approval and the county corporation council approval. So I think it'll get good legal and financial overview. I did not find anywhere in this resolution or the next resolution that said the county would pay any debt if any special charge payments were not made by the borrower. So I think it's a safe opportunity for economic development in this county. I understand that John Hatchcott from Wisconsin Counties Association and Jason Stringer are here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Supervisor Faria.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I note that the committee vote under Personnel and Finance was 3-1. I would like to, if the person would wish to, hear why the person did not support it, so that I might benefit from that point of view.
Two weeks ago tonight, I didn't hear anything that would lead me to believe that this was something necessary or that good for Winnebago County. Subsequent to that, we had a meeting at P&F, and I was not further convinced. I asked the question 2 weeks ago. There are 20-some counties that have signed on. How many of those counties have had a project go through this particular system? And the answer was 0. I, for one, don't like to be the first to do something. If Chevrolet puts out a new model car, I don't go buy it that first year. If Samsung puts out a new flat screen TV, I don't go buy it that year. If this would come back in 6 months, 7 months, a year, and tell of all the success stories that they've had across the state of Wisconsin, I would probably feel a whole lot different. But right now, I don't see the need. That's why I voted no.
Thank you.
Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before our special orders meeting earlier this month, I read the materials that were given to us. I listened very carefully during that presentation. At the end of the presentation, I was very confused and thought I was the only one. So I asked the questions. I asked the gentleman a question, basically, why this, why now, and why us? And the reply was, oh, that's a great question, with a comment that didn't answer the question at all. I believe there are other questions, and the answer, first of all, was always predicated by, that's a great question. And as far as I was concerned, the question was not answered. I thought that was an extremely poor presentation, and I see no imperative reason to jump to a vote for something based on that kind of a presentation with those kinds of questions unanswered. There's no rush.
Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I will oppose this resolution because from what I have read in the Wisconsin statute, 66.0627, parent A, parent C, entitled Special Charges for Current Services and Energy Efficient and Water Efficiency Improvement Loans, the county can pretend to help businesses by giving them their mortgages for energy-efficient improvements a tax advantage called a special charge, which elevates their mortgage debt to the same priority as a special assessment liens. So if one of these were approved, that loan, that whether it's a second mortgage or whatever, if it's a second mortgage, it's elevated above the first mortgage from the statute. This means that special charge has that priority, and although several counties have signed on to it, I will oppose it, and despite state statute permitting it, I oppose this because I don't believe that leveraging the county's responsibility and power to tax should be used to collect private mortgage debts. And that's essentially what that sign-on is. And I can't for the light of me, or perhaps Mr. Stringer or Mr. Hockhammer can explain to us why this has been such a phenomenon with 23 counties on board. I don't see giving our tax power to private lenders.
Mr. Hockerman, he asks that you give your...
Well, I'm giving them an opportunity to explain the benefits for that program in a way that perhaps we can understand it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Supervisor Eisen.
I'll second it then.
We had a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. And I'll get to Supervisor Eisen's question, but if I could just take this opportunity. When I first heard about PACE about 2.5 years ago, nearly 3 years ago now, I put my elected official's hat on. I know many of you in this room, and you know that I served on the county board in Manitowoc for 8 years. My last term there as chair before I went to WCA. And I'm in my 21st year in city government, where I was the chair of the finance committee, and the last 12 years as mayor of the city of Verona. And when I heard about PACE, I saw this as another opportunity, another tool in the toolbox for economic development, and also supporting sustainability efforts that didn't cost any local unit of government, the state or the federal government, any money. The loan that is with a PACE loan is strictly a loan between the commercial property owner on a voluntary basis, between that commercial property owner and the lender, to provide energy efficiency for more effective cash flow in that business operation. So it becomes a competitive edge as if it's available in Winnebago County, and if it's not available in Winnebago County and it is available in other counties around the state, especially our neighbors. So again, there's no taxpayer dollars whatsoever in the program. The program was initially created for sustainability issues as well as economic development. And in the state statutes, what Supervisor Eisen mentioned is right. That is, in the event of a delinquency on a PACE loan, a special charge will be put on the property tax bill. One of the things we're doing different in the state of Wisconsin with the PACE Commission is the counties are not collecting the annual payment, and the counties are not the enforcer of collecting the payment. In some states, the Sheriff's Department actually goes out and collects the annual payment, and the county processes the payment. With PACE Wisconsin, we're not doing that. The PACE Commission selected a third-party administrator, which is WEC, Wisconsin Energy Conservation Corporation, and they handle the collection of those dollars, the processing of that, and then providing the funds to the lender. So why would the county get involved in this? Because you're providing that additional economic development tool to property owners within your county boundaries. Now, although this program has been available since 2009, it really didn't take off until we met. It was WEC and myself from the Counties Association and Von Briesen, who's general legal counsel to the Counties Association. We all got together and we said, why is this not being used? This is a no-brainer, as most people say it, when they really understand the program. Why are we not using it? So we have spent, in April of 2016, Eau Claire County was the first county to come in. By the fall of 2016, we had enough counties that we could form the commission. So we still are in the formation process of getting this going. We're very close to having the first loan approved outside of the city of Milwaukee for a PACE loan. And I can tell you that in Wisconsin, there's a lot of interest from lenders. There's a lot of interest from the private sector. There's a lot of interest from municipal government, cities, villages, and counties. And nationwide, it's really taking off. Until a short time ago, the largest PACE loan in the country was $10 million. Recently, there was a $23 million PACE loan in the state of Texas, and there was a $40+ million loan in the state of California on a PACE loan. So this is not something that you have to do right now. We would encourage you to do it because we believe that you're at a disadvantage if the surrounding counties are in the program and you're not. And Jason and I met with the Finance Committee in Outagamie County this morning, and they directed the appropriate people to take a look at drafting the resolution and the ordinance for the board's consideration. We're talking to a number of other counties. Friday we're in Milwaukee County. We're going to see more and more counties sign up. The thing about this is if you were to approve this tonight, it makes it available in the county. You may or may not have any property owners that decide that they want to use PACE. And the other thing that was built into the program was that we currently have 23 counties in the program. If Outagamie County or Winnebago County came into the program, you'd be the 24th county. The host county of the project always has veto authority over the entire loan. So if the other 23 counties all thought that this was a good idea, the banks, the lenders have done their due diligence, WEC has done their due diligence, the PACE Commission has done their due diligence, for whatever reason, no questions asked. If your designee from Winnebago County decided that they didn't think it was the right thing to do, the loan would not be approved. Those are some of the safeguards that are built in place. So again, I think some of the key things are there are no taxpayer dollars involved in this program whatsoever. You are only creating the vehicle by which PACE is allowed to be utilized in the county. And I think another important point, because of some of the safeguards that are built into the program that I'm sure Jason mentioned at a prior meeting, is to date, since 2009, in the country, not only in the state of Wisconsin, in the entire country, there has never been a delinquent PACE loan for a commercial property in the country. That's pretty amazing. That's a fantastic track record. I hope I covered the questions, but we're available for any more.
Supervisor Warnke.
I've always been for this, and from what I just heard now, I'm for it more. I see nothing wrong with going into this to save energy. Like the man said, nobody has ever forfeited on it. It's not going to cost the taxpayer any money, and it's going to save energy. So I urge you to vote for this thing, because if we don't vote for it now, I think we're going to come back in a little while and vote for it again. So I would think that we should vote for it now and get in the program. Thank you.
Supervisor Powers.
Mr. Chairman, I also am in favor very much of green energy things, but at the special sessions meeting, I asked the question, if the loan were made to a nonprofit and the loan were then defaulted on, they don't have property taxes that you can put this against. How do you get your money back from a nonprofit that does not pay property tax?
The PACE, legislation is very specific to energy efficiency projects. So even in a worst case scenario where there may be a foreclosure on a property, The PACE loan exists until it's paid. So if the county were to have to take the property in foreclosure, the county, just like any other foreclosure, you would get your payment of any of your expenses first. And if there isn't enough money to pay that existing PACE loan, the delinquent amount, that transfers to the new property owner. So a delinquency on a PACE loan doesn't go away like it would in a mortgage, where the bank would just be out the money. It's tied to the property, it's a voluntary program, and it's tied to that property and stays there until the loan is paid. It's not tied to the individual or to the user of that property, it's tied to the property. I hope that answers your question. So let me just put it this way. What we see happening, and when we talk to other states, is if there were a delinquency on a PACE loan, and a PACE loan does not accelerate like a typical mortgage loan where if you were delinquent, the entire balance is due. On a PACE loan delinquency, only the amount delinquent is due. So if your annual payment would be $25,000 and you make your payment in year 1, 2, and 3, but not year 4, you're delinquent $25,000. You're not delinquent the entire balance of the loan. So what would happen, because there's lender consent, mortgage lender consent, if there were a delinquency, that mortgage holder does not want to see that property go into foreclosure because they hold the mortgage. So at that point, they would get involved to make sure that that charge is being paid as well. And I know we spend a lot of time when we go to counties talking about the what if and the worst case scenario. There are some loans out there that and I shouldn't say loan, but applications out there nationwide that didn't get approved because they couldn't get lender support. And rightfully so, because the operation wasn't financially feasible. And if the ongoing operations aren't feasible to do this type of investment, the mortgage lender is not going to support the PACE loan being approved. And it is a requirement of the program that the mortgage lender must approve a PACE loan or it dies at that point.
Okay, we have a 127-year-old church, and the furnace is a coal-burning furnace. Obviously would benefit from having something more efficient. There's no mortgage holder on a 127-year-old church. There's no property taxes on a 127-year-old church. If they should get this loan and get it, are we out anything as a county if they can't pay it back? And who is? The county's not going to want to foreclose on a 127-year-old church. What are they going to do with it?
Absolutely. I think I understand the question, and it's true, a church doesn't pay property taxes. But if a church and a congregation elected to use PACE financing to fund a boiler renovation or something of those sorts, they would voluntarily elect to be assessed a special charge if they were to use a PACE financing. So they would voluntarily create an assessment on that property. And so then, therefore, they would be subject to the terms and conditions of the PACE financing.
Okay, they would agree to that just for the life of that loan, not for any other part of the property.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Supervisor Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the P&F committee meeting, the question I asked, and I think Supervisor Eisen was asking the same question, if lender A is Bank A is the original mortgage holder, and then they decide to go with a PACE loan, how is that original mortgage holder protected from a default?
First and foremost, a mortgage lender A would have to approve the PACE financing. So they would have approval rights over whether or not the financing goes forward. And like any loan that they would make or approve, they're subject to the risks of making that investment. So they're in a position to evaluate the creditworthiness of the PACE financing and the underlying investment, and their approval is necessary to proceed with that financing.
So in essence, they can veto the application?
Yes, sir.
At the meeting, Chuck and John and our treasurer asked a lot of questions and felt, at least they stated afterwards, they felt comfortable that this did not leave any exposure to the county. Based on that, and I also believe that we need to give every opportunity to our businesses in Winnebago County to take advantage of any type of loan that's going to benefit them and allow them to grow. Based on that, I'm going to support this resolution.
Supervisor Furry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question has been answered. Thank you.
Supervisor Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't have the opportunity to be here during the presentations a couple of weeks ago. As many of you know, I was down in Houston after Hurricane Harvey. But I did have the opportunity to review these documents and review the presentation information. And I have to tell you, even before hearing the comments tonight, I was in favor of this wholeheartedly. When I look at this, to me, I see very, very little downside. And actually, I think the guests here tonight articulated those fairly well. But just to encapsulate it and to summarize both what I understood before coming here tonight and based on kind of confirmation here tonight, essentially what this is a no-risk vehicle to the county, and the county still maintains control. In other words, it still has the opportunity to veto a potential loan. Number two, it promotes and saves energy, always a good thing and something we should encourage. Three, it increases economic development and is another tool for us to do that. Four, it maintains our competitive advantage. 23 counties have already signed on board. There are 72 counties in this county. I don't want to be the last one in the state to sign on to this. Wisconsin is not the first state to do it, and we wouldn't be the first county. And my final point is, and frankly, when you look at the agenda, you'll see it right there. We already have something in place that is not too dissimilar from this in the sense of the Industrial Development Board loans. Very similar aims in terms of spurring economic development and having a vehicle to do that, as well as a process to vet those sort of projects. All of those are in this sort of program. I just don't see a significant downside for the county to move forward with this program, so I urge you to support it tonight. Thank you.
Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My language won't be as good as Shiloh's. However, though, I've got 25 years on the board, and we've had a lot of dealings with Wisconsin County Association. Along with the presentation that they gave us a couple of weeks ago, I was already pretty much sold then, but when it comes to Wisconsin County Association, they're going to do what's best for all the counties. Reason being is that it's called Wisconsin Counties Association. They're going to do what's best for us. They're not going to try to do something on the side. So therefore, I urge everybody to vote for this, especially when you got Wisconsin County Association backing it and supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll vote by our little iPad. Supervisor Roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had thought of something after I spoke the last time, and it just reminded me when one of the previous speakers was talking. We do have an industrial development board. A thought that ran through my mind was if a business in Winnebago County is looking for financing, where would we direct them in the future? Through the PACE program or through the Industrial Development Board?
Thank you. Thank you.
Excuse me. I was asking that of someone from Winnebago County.
Oh, okay.
Supervisor Keller.
Excuse me. Nobody has an answer?
Supervisor Keller.
I'm gonna speak to that, Supervisor Roll. If someone came, or we became aware of someone that was looking to expand or do something, if it was energy-based, energy, savings or something to that effect, which the PACE program is set up to do, we would certainly refer them to them. We would also make them aware of a revolving loan fund. Either one could be used. I don't know if both could be used, but we would make them aware of both. And if that wasn't an energy efficient thing, then we would certainly want them to use the revolving loan fund.
The last comment I have refers to a comment that was made about we don't want to be an island. Looking at the map, Outagamie County is not participating yet. Calumet County is not. Waupaca County is not. Waushara County is not. It's almost like we'd be an island if we did participate. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll vote by our little iPads. Vote aye if you approve, no if you disapprove. That is passed. Ordinance number 191-9/2017 creates section 315 of General Code of Winnebago County Property Assessed Clean Energy PACE Financing Ordinance. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for ordinance number 191-9/2017.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Aye. We'll vote by our little iPad. Ready? Supervisor Ellis.
You gotta do the other one first.
That is passed. Ordinance number 192-9/2017 amends section 19.24, parent 2, parent A of the General Code of Winnebago County to reflect fee increases to each category of the Community Park Shuttle Rental Fees Program and eliminate small group open air shelter rental services. Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for ordinance number 192-92017.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Resolution 193-9/2017. Authorized transfer of $150,000 from the general fund contingency fund to the equipment budget of Winnebago County Clerk of Courts 2017 budget for the purchase of file shelving to be installed during the Winnebago County Courthouse relocation project. I think she asked me if she could say something in a minute. She had something she wanted to add to it or take away. Supervisor Wingan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of Resolution 193-921-2017. I was given some information prior to the meeting from the Clerk of Courts. I was not able to contact the committee, so at this time I'd like her to tell everyone what she told me.
Thank you. I did want to let the committee know that in the resolution, it did say that it's not going to fit all of my files that need to be moved. I went back to the committee, or to the consultants after they gave me the calculation of all the files, and we redid the linear inches of all the files, and The files, all the files in this courthouse will fit in the space provided in the basement. There was concern that there was gonna have to be a whole nother space created and more money asked for, and there should not be.
Supervisor Gabbard.
Okay, so now I'm really confused. Are you telling me we're doing shelving in the basement of the courthouse? We're doing shelving over at the Bagash building? And then my second question is, what is costing $150,000?
We're not doing any shelving at the Otter Street building at all. No, all my files are
So
here
it-
and at Butler.
So you don't need this resolution then?
We need this resolution for the shelving file storage systems that are needed in the basement of this building.
Okay, so now I'm asking, what kind of file system is this that it costs $150,000?
It's for roughly 104,000 files that we have on site between the second, third, and fourth floor. The systems that are currently in this building are on my floor are broken, and the ones that are in the law library on the third floor, they're concreted into the ground. They're not movable. So the systems are, have you ever seen the systems that roll together and they maximize the amount of space that's needed? So the shelving's on both sides and then they lock, so no one can access the files if someone were in there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it was moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 195/9/2017. Authorize Winnebago County Finance Department enter into a five-year contract with Maximum to prepare Winnebago County's annual cost allegation plan at a cost of $5,500 per year. Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for resolution number 195/9/2017.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 196/9/2017. Support legislation to allow an individual meeting certain requirements to file a petition for expungement of individual criminal record and sentencing court after the individuals complete a sentence. Supervisor Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the approval of Resolution 196-92017.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One no. Carried. Pardon? Two no. Oh, one abstention. I thought it said no.
One no, one abstain, one no.
Resolution 197/9/2017. Support legislation to maintain full funding for the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. Supervisor Egan.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval of Resolution number 197-92017.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Hager abstained. Supervisor Keller.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to clarify the voting for this resolution. I guess it was okay. It was a voice vote, which probably means it exceeded the 3/4 of membership required. But I just wanted to point it out. It's not a majority. It's 3/4 of membership required.
For the,
Thank you.
for resolution 197? On resolution 197. Okay, we have to vote by our, huh?
You only had
So I don't have
one
to
no
vote by
vote and
our
one
iPad?
abstain. You had one abstain.
Okay, it's been asked that we vote by our iPad. So we'll take our iPad on resolution 197. We'll vote by our iPads. And that's to support legislation to maintain full funding for the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative.
We're gonna do that, then we'll vote 196.
Pardon? Okay, Mr. Keller, restate what you want to have done.
On resolution number 196, I was going to state that it requires a three-quarter vote of membership to pass because it's support of legislation, state or federal.
Well,
You had a voice vote, and I guess that you could assume that's 100%.
we had a voice vote, but there was one abstention.
It's still three-quarters.
We were more than three-quarters because
Yes.
we had one no and one abstention.
Correct. The next resolution will require the same thing.
Resolution 197, 9/2017, support legislation to maintain full funding for the Great Lakes restoration. We'll vote, and that passed.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
It was a voice vote, and we had one abstention on 197.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Well, we're almost, Supervisor Eisen with your point of order.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if we're going to acknowledge that we need to vote by the iPad for three-quarters of vote, let's go back and vote on Resolution 194, where we're spending $9 million.
So we're on 197, correct, or we did that? So now we're on 198. 198, 9/2017, adopt chapter 14 of General Code of Winnebago County, illegit discharge and illegit connection ordinance. Land Conservation Committee, Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the approval of 198, 9/2017. Let me comment, if I might. I want to express my appreciation for the hard work the committee did. I'm talking about Land Conservation Committee. This took us about 3 months. Of course, you have one meeting a month, but to iron out issues with it. So the product you have before you is, we feel, an adequate one to provide the safety concerns necessary within those highway right-of-ways. Now, remember, this ordinance just protects within the county highway right-of-way. So that's what it's all about. And the adjoining lands that would be polluting into it if that is the case. So this gives the county highway commissioner, who's responsible for this, the authority to delegate the enforcement side of it to Land Water Conservation Department, which will be the perceived course that it's going to be taken. If you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
Supervisor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would ask the chairman of this committee, I don't care who voted no. My question to you is, why did that person vote no?
I do not know, sir. You'd have to ask that question of that person.
That person didn't state why he or she was voting no?
At the meeting?
Right.
No.
Was that a county board supervisor or a citizen member?
It was a county board supervisor.
Thank you.
We'll vote by our iPad. Vote aye if you approve, no if you disapprove. That is passed. Resolution number 199, 9/2017, designate the Winnebago County Department of Human Services to receive and coordinate service teams CST funding from the Wisconsin Department of Health Services for the purpose of providing wraparound services to uninsured youth and families. Supervisor Lautenschlager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for the adoption of Resolution 199-92017.
Second.
And I just want to comment on this a little bit. Dr. Topol's in the back. Any other questions? This is basically a resolution that we're asking the state for funding for $60,000 for a coordinated service team that helps keep individuals with multiple needs in the community, any problems they have in their homes, in school, in the works. Basically, this resolution is brought to you because the Wisconsin Department of Health Services requires that the county board supervisor designate an agency to receive this funding prior to the funding being awarded to us. So basically, that's what it is. And Winnebago County is only one of 14 counties that do not have these coordinated services teams. All other counties have these. So that's what we're asking for.
So was it moved and seconded? Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In regards to the resolution, and maybe I just don't know, I see a lot of people with multiple needs, but what does multiple needs mean in terms of the first whereas?
Mr. Topol? You can grab that one, anyone.
Multiple needs would be a variety of things that would include mental health services, case management, coordination, social work activities. It's a pretty much a large category of services, all in the human services array, not anything else outside of that. So we wouldn't be talking about physical health. We wouldn't be talking about any of that sort of thing.
Nutritional?
No, not nutritional, just within the purview of human services.
In regards to the second line there in the first whereas, line 10, what does coordinated mean? And I think in some of these programs, some of the coordinated issues are maybe border on redundant. Is that
right? We didn't come up with the terminology. That's the state's name for it. But coordination simply means that we're going to coordinate with our local partners. And this process is a joint planning process between my staff and other members of the community, be they law enforcement, school, that would come around this family to try to identify the need array. And it's they call this particular process coordinated service team because the team is that multi-adult kind of group that forms around the family to help with, again, specific human services needs.
And the last question is in the first line of the second whereas, line 12, you're asking for $60,000 here. Approximately how many people do you think that $60,000 will affect?
60,000 is the amount that they give each county, and most counties serve somewhere between, on a yearly basis, somewhere between 10 and 50 families with that $60,000. And again, it is in part for the family, but it's a lot for the coordination of my staff service time around that as well. So the families are also getting services from agency vendors perhaps as well. So that's why it seems like it's maybe a lot per family, but in reality, it takes, quite a bit of staff time plus a service array that goes with each family. And that family could have multiple kids within it. So it's not just for one individual child, it could be for a variety of children and their parents to receive services that they need. If we can also coordinate other services on top of that, that are available, Medicaid-related services and other things, we'll do that as well. But this is primarily for children and families who, for whatever reason, don't qualify for regular insurance or Medicaid that we would have to pick up as a county ourselves with county tax levy. We may be able to use this funding in place of that, which would be a good thing for Winnebago County.
So if there were, say, 13 families, just to pick the median of 10 and 15, or 10 and 50, if there were 30 families and
Right.
you needed half that money to plan and coordinate those services, is that sufficient funding for that, or is, I just wouldn't know.
Yeah, we would use that funding until it was exhausted, and then we would potentially go back to the other funding that we would use like we have used up to this point. So it may push us into using county tax levy, but we would try to use this funding as the first source of revenue.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll vote on our iPads. Vote aye if you approve, no if you disapprove. You have to click that thing in the bottom. You have to click your. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Supervisor Robel. Thank you, we are adjourned.